Well, after reports over the last few weeks that Bayer was considering making an offer for Monsanto, we found out late yesterday, Monsanto confirming that the German company has formally sent a proposal, an acquisition proposal, over to Monsanto's offices, and joining us. Or not necessarily joining us. He's always here on Real Agriculture. Shaun Haney. We're talking about Monsanto and Bayer potentially acquiring the company. I guess after some of the talk over the last few weeks and even months, going back to Monsanto and Syngenta back last summer, this doesn't really come as a surprise.
I don't think so. I think that it's really an interesting scenario. A lot of people are saying, I'm reading on Twitter this morning, a lot of farmers are saying, well, this was forced because of the Dow-DuPont merger. And I think for a lot of people, the Dow-DuPont merger happened because of the potential of this news today. Clearly we're in a bit of a down cycle in ag. Earnings are not where they should be or where investors want them to be. And so this is when mergers and acquisitions, this is when they happen. And I think what's really interesting about this is I've phoned, across the different people in the U.S. from an industry perspective. This merger makes a lot of sense in the corn and soybean market. This is a really good combination of traits and seed with herbicide portfolio. So I think in the West, we see a lot of overlap. Outside of the canola market, it does seem to make a lot of sense to a lot of people.
What about from a farmer's perspective, though, where you're seeing all this wave of consolidation? We're going to possibly be left with half the number of companies investing in innovation and developing new traits and new technology. Is competition going to suffer if we see this kind of thing happen?
Well, I think it really depends on how you look at things, right? So I guess think of yourself when you're buying, herbicide. There's more brands available on the shelf today to kill weeds and deal with insects than ever before. There's just less companies making them. And, I guess, so you can take, I'm really concerned because, the actives that are available are in the hands of a smaller pool of people. But I guess if you look at the car market, is it really that different, right? We have Ford, we have Chev, we have Dodge, and then we have some others, but we really have three major brands in North America. And we're okay with that. So, I know this is more of a business-to-business scenario, so it is a little bit different. But I think it, for an ag, we always talk about how we believe in the free market, and this is the free market at work from we're talking somewhere between $40 and $60 billion deal. These are big dollars, but it's, big or small, it is capitalism.
Mm-hmm. If we look at how the market has reacted here to the news in the first 24 hours, it's obviously friendly for shareholders. Bayer not so much.
Yeah, no, Bayer's kind of taken on the chin a little bit. Like I looked early this morning when I got to work, and Monsanto pre-market was up 5.5%. I don't know where it is right now, and Bayer was getting hammered in the London Stock Exchange, down 8%. So clearly, Monsanto shareholders initially here on the first day are the early winners. And there is a lot of talk about some backlash in Germany. You did a bit of research on that. What'd you find?
Well, yeah, there's an article that Bloomberg has posted looking at some of the negative connotations, of course, surrounding Monsanto's name. And I think the name itself, the brand that Monsanto has, particularly in the anti-technology crowd, could be an obstacle, both in terms of Monsanto's business going forward. It is an obstacle in terms of Monsanto's business already, and in terms of a sale to this German-based company. Germans, some government surveying in Germany showed some pretty negative views on glyphosate and genetic modification, two things which Monsanto is heavily, of course, involved in. So. Whether there's backlash in Germany from perhaps shareholders or a regulatory perspective, how that could impact a possible deal too, just because here's Bayer, this German company, taking on Monsanto, which isn't necessarily viewed as favorable. It's an American company I think the article talked about it being the epitome of American corporate kind of interests, and here this European German company taking it on, how that could potentially impact this deal too, and how people view Bayer going forward.
Yeah, well, and the reality is it all comes down to does the acquisition of Monsanto provide Bayer shareholders with a return, right? And so,
yeah,
that's really what this all kind of comes down to, no matter how you feel about GM or some of the things that Monsanto has been doing. Monsanto really has been waving the flag for modern agriculture, so to speak, from a technological standpoint. And so, I guess Bayer is willing to take that flag in their two hands and, push ahead and push forward. And it also shows that obviously Bayer is very confident that the trend of acres towards GM and traits and all those kinds of things is going to continue. And it's, I guess where most of the farmer backlash is actually in Western Canada. And that's the part of the whole competition situation that's really going to be interesting to watch play out, because I think this is sort of where we're maybe going to see some dominoes start to fall.
Yeah, just in areas where, even from a regulatory perspective, for this deal to go through, if you look at canola varieties grown in Western Canada, between Bayer's InVigor varieties and then the Roundup Ready trait canola owned by Monsanto, that's pretty much a monopoly on canola seed in Western Canada.
Yeah, it's going to give them, from a trait perspective, when you look at Liberty plus Roundup Ready, it's going to give them about 95% of the trait market in canola. And if you look at on a seed variety basis, if you combine InVigor and DeKalb, it's going to give them about a 70% market share. So, and this is the interesting thing about Bayer, is that what Bayer's position in Western Canada in broadacre farming doesn't really exist anywhere else in the world. Like, Bayer is a massive herbicide and seed company in Western Canada. And what's really, really interesting is that one of the dominoes that may fall here, Bayer's buying Monsanto to acquire, things like the Extend trait, the hundreds of millions of acres out there of soybeans so that they could put Extend on. Clearly, Roundup Ready is a global trait. And they have this little thing called InVigor in their Liberty business in Western Canada that encompasses, somewhere probably between 10 and 12 million acres. And that's actually what maybe they're forced to sell off in order to meet some of the competition requirements. It's going to be really, really interesting to see if InVigor actually is owned by another company like a Syngenta or a BASF when this deal is all said and done.
So those two, Syngenta and BASF, you think they would be the front runners in buying InVigor if it was put on the market?
Well, I think they would be anybody's first guess. Obviously, there is other companies. I just don't know what it would actually be worth, and a lot is what I mean, and who would have the cash to buy it or make it work. And I think there would be, if you put a for sale sign up tomorrow on InVigor, and the Liberty trait for a Western Canadian perspective with 20 million canola acres, and look at the share that, people are estimating somewhere around 56 to 57% for InVigor this year, there would be a healthy premium paid for that program. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see who does, if and that's all, this is all speculation. And I have heard the same speculation. This isn't just something I dreamed up. There are a number of people talking, including in mainstream financial media, that this is one of the things Bayer may have to give up to get Monsanto. It's going to be really interesting to watch play out.
And what happens then, maybe this is going too far into the future, but what happens if Bayer does buy Monsanto, and what do they do with Monsanto's current canola genetics and say TrueFlex and some of that technology?
Yeah, it's really fun. That's kind of the fun part about our business, is speculating on, these are all chess pieces in sort of the game of corporate agriculture. And there is going to be, I would imagine, a lot of entities and businesses that are very, very interested in how would this fit into our portfolio. Being in the trait business is not cheap. So, there's a pretty small select group of companies that could actually, one, step up to buy, two, and fund the long-term research and the development and the approvals and the, regulation. This is big business. This isn't, Joe's plant breeding that's stepping up to buy some of these things.
No. And we haven't even touched really on the cultural differences between these two companies too. Monsanto, of course, being based in St. Louis, and then Bayer from overseas. Two different styles of business in the past too.
Well, hey, we talked about that with Bud Hughes when the whole rumors were going on about Syngenta and Monsanto, and that's one of the things that Bud said was, culture in any sort of merger and acquisition is insanely important. And so here again, European business merging or acquiring American business, there's a different way those companies function, and one's not good and one's not bad. They're just different. And when you're Monsanto, you've been the acquirer for a long time here, right? So you're sitting in head office in St. Louis, and it's great. The Cardinals have been fantastic in baseball, and all of a sudden, you may be
and
moving,
the Blues too. Don't forget
and the Blues
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now possibly, oh wait a minute, I have a head office job, but I got to move to Germany. I'm not sure I'm too excited about that. So I think those are things that really play on the minds of, we got to think I mentioned these are chess pieces, but they're also a lot of people. And that's really who these kind of deals are really, really tough on.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves either. This is still just in early stages. And as Monsanto's statement said yesterday, there's no assurance that any deal will actually be done or what the terms will be. So we will, of course, stay tuned and keep everybody posted on what happens if we do see some more consolidation happen in the input side of agriculture. And thanks for taking the time to chat, Shaun.
Hey, cheers, Kelvin. It's always fun to speculate and talk and what is possible. So love doing it.